Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfiction guy. Back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Was Hiding Infinite Power? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku Midoriya had lived since the dawn of time. He was present when the first animals appeared and when people invented the English language. He even contributed to the creation of the first piece of paper, the telephone, and the internet. Over the centuries, he learned various combat strategies and fighting techniques. He had also played a significant role in the care of the first glowing baby girl and had fought in numerous wars, facing formidable opponents. But now, the story begins as he applies to UA High School after observing the generations of heroes it had produced. Upon arriving at UA, Izuku adopted a bubbly, nervous fanboy persona for the entrance exam. He wore a nervous expression and stumbled, but instead of falling, he found himself floating. A girl with brown hair and brown eyes, dressed in a pink scarf, brown jacket, and carrying a backpack, had used her quirk to catch him. She apologized, explaining that she hadn't meant to startle him. Izuku thought she seemed kind and agreed that the situation was nerve-wracking. After a brief exchange, she walked away. As the exam began and the atmosphere in the auditorium grew tense, Izuku scanned the crowd and spotted the brown-haired girl again. She appeared anxious, and he intended to help calm her nerves when a certain boy with blue hair and glasses approached him, questioning his intentions. Izuku stammered a response, but before he could say more, Present Mic's voice boomed, urging everyone to start the exam without hesitation. Izuku, having learned not to hesitate, teleported around the arena, swiftly taking down most of the robotic opponents. The others soon followed suit, but then he heard screams and turned to see the zero-pointer robot. Spotting the brown-haired girl in danger, he teleported to her side and destroyed the robot with a powerful punch. He landed beside her and asked if she was okay, to which she replied that she was fine. Fast forward to the first day of school, Izuku opened the large door to Class 1A and saw Katsuki Bakugo lounging with his feet on the desk while Tenya Ida scolded him. Izuku had hacked into UA's system to learn the names of his classmates, and he was pleased to see that Achiko Uraraka had made it in as well. When Ida noticed Izuku, he bowed deeply and apologized. As the class settled, the door opened to reveal their homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, who emerged from a yellow sleeping bag. The students gasped in surprise, and Izuku explained who Aizawa was, earning skeptical looks from his classmates. Aizawa then announced that he would be their homeroom teacher and instructed them to change into their PE clothes for a quirk assessment test. After changing, Aizawa called Katsuki Bakugo to demonstrate his abilities. Bakugo stepped into the circle and, after a brief exchange about his middle school score, threw a softball with explosive force, achieving an impressive distance. Next, it was Izuku's turn. Aizawa asked for his middle school score, and after some thought, Izuku confidently stated it was 500 meters. The class reacted with disbelief, and Mineta accused him of lying. Izuku sighed and decided to prove his claim. He approached the circle, muttering about how long ago middle school felt. He instructed everyone to stand back, and after they complied, he threw the ball with all his strength, producing a loud boom. Aizawa's expression was one of astonishment as he revealed the distance on the screen, leaving the class in shock. Infinity was all he said, leaving the class in a state of shock. That marked the end of the chapter. Gratitude filled the air for those who had read, and hope lingered for what was to come next. The characters found themselves in a world filled with challenges and adventures. As they navigated through their journey, they encountered various obstacles that tested their strength and resolve. Each moment brought them closer together, forging bonds that would withstand the trials ahead. In the midst of their travels, they faced a formidable enemy whose presence loomed over them like a dark cloud. The tension in the air was palpable as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. They strategized, knowing that teamwork would be their greatest asset in overcoming the threat. As the battle commenced, the clash of wills echoed around them. The characters fought valiantly, their movements swift and precise, showcasing their skills and determination. Each strike was calculated, aimed at outsmarting their opponent rather than causing harm. The intensity of the fight kept everyone on edge, but they remained focused on their goal. Amidst the chaos, they found moments of clarity where their resolve shone through. They encouraged one another, drawing strength from their shared experiences. The camaraderie they had built was evident as they worked together, each contributing their unique abilities to turn the tide of the battle. With a final push, they managed to outmaneuver their adversary, forcing them to retreat. The victory was hard-earned, and though they were weary, a sense of accomplishment filled the air. They celebrated their success, knowing that they had not only triumphed over a great challenge but had also grown closer as a team. As they continued their journey, the characters reflected on their experiences. They understood that each challenge they faced was not just a test of strength but also an opportunity for growth. With renewed determination, they set their sights on the adventures that lay ahead, ready to face whatever came their way. Izuku watched as Kaminari struggled to comprehend the situation. He stuttered, questioning how Izuku had managed to succeed without using his quirk. Izuku simply shrugged, claiming his strength was the answer. The rest of the class stared in awe, except for Bakugo, who was clearly frustrated. He challenged Izuku to a fight, getting into a fighting stance. Izuku turned to Mr. Aizawa and asked for permission to use his quirk. Aizawa nodded, and Izuku could sense his curiosity behind his expressionless demeanor. He glanced at Bakugo and assured him that he wouldn't even attack. Bakugo growled and unleashed explosions in Izuku's direction. Unfazed, Izuku casually dodged while taunting him, questioning if that was all he had and calling him weak. Bored with the exchange, Izuku decided to end it. He stopped time, knocked Bakugo out, teleported a bed to the middle of the grounds, and dressed him in a Hello Kitty onesie before putting him to bed. When time resumed, the class gasped at the sight of the furious Bakugo. In his new attire, and laughter erupted around them. Izuku grinned, relishing the moment as he walked away, snapping pictures of Bakugo. The next day, after the trial battle arc, Izuku noticed a change in Bakugo's demeanor. He seemed softer, giggling with the girls about something related to Pom-Pom Purin. Suddenly, All Might burst into the room, announcing his arrival with a loud declaration. The students gasped, and whispers filled the air as he explained that they would be having a trial battle on ground beta, emphasizing the importance of costumes. Izuku's costume was simple, a white t-shirt and black leggings adorned with black studs in his ears. When he stepped out, laughter erupted from his classmates, questioning if that was really his hero costume. All Might appeared again, scrutinizing Izuku and demanding to know where his costume was. Izuku sighed, reiterating that this was indeed his costume. All Might insisted it was inadequate and that he might get hurt. Izuku resisted the urge to point out that he was older than All Might. The hero challenged him to defeat the entire class in this trial battle to earn respect for his choice of attire. Izuku accepted, and All Might explained the rules: touch the bomb to win. The class would act as villains, leaving Izuku in the hero role. He activated his gear, which transformed into a high-tech version of his outfit. When the battle commenced, Izuku stopped time, teleported to the bomb, sat on it, and resumed time. He declared himself the winner, prompting gasps and whispers from his classmates. Momo Yaoyorozu asked about his quirk, but Izuku replied that he couldn't reveal it yet. She accepted this answer with a hint of disappointment. After class, Mina suggested an introduction session, and most of the class agreed. Mina enthusiastically introduced herself, sharing her quirk and a fun fact about her dancing skills. Bakugo, now softer, introduced himself shyly, mentioning his quirk and a love for mountain climbing. Izuku followed suit, stating he couldn't disclose his quirk yet but had taken on many jobs. The class was astonished by his experiences. Izuku then informed them they would be heading to the unforeseen simulation joint later, clarifying for Kaminari that it wasn't the Universal Studios of Japan. As Izuku left the classroom, Aizawa woke up and addressed the students, announcing their trip to the USJ. The class chimed in unison, revealing that Izuku had already informed them. They all exited together. On the bus ride to the USJ, Izuku felt an unsettling sense of danger and remained alert. Upon arrival, he quickly instructed Ida to run back to UA and inform them of a potential villain attack. Ida hesitated, but Izuku insisted, urging him to go without delay. As Ida took off, purple mist began to form around them. Izuku directed the class to gather around 13 for safety. He then urged Aizawa to join him in the fight, insisting that despite being younger, he was more experienced and capable. The chapter concluded, leaving readers eager for what would come next. Aizawa felt a mix of confusion and resignation. He couldn't help but wonder what Midoriya meant by being older than him. Regardless, he had fought alongside him, and it was clear that Midoriya was incredibly skilled. Every time Aizawa took down 3 villains, Midoriya seemed to take down 30. Suddenly, a strange creature resembling a bird appeared. Midoriya instructed Aizawa to stay back, insisting he would handle it. Aizawa respected his decision and stepped aside. In just 5 minutes, the creature was reduced to ashes. Aizawa heard someone shout in frustration, "No!" That Nomu was supposed to kill All Might. He turned to see a young man with baby blue hair, covered in hands. Without hesitation, Aizawa charged at him, and they engaged in a fierce battle. Another Nomu arrived to assist the blue-haired man, and Aizawa attempted to erase its quirk, but it remained powerful. Suddenly, everything went dark. When Izuku regained consciousness, he noticed Aizawa was unconscious and quickly teleported to him. He lifted Aizawa onto his shoulder and transported him to the ambulance outside, instructing the medical team to take him on a stretcher. The professionals looked at him in shock, but Izuku grinned and encouraged them to join the fight. He teleported back into the USJ just in time to see All Might throw the Nomu through a window. As he surveyed the scene, he found Mashireo Ojiro, Kyoka Jairu, and Mineta Minor lying lifeless on the ground. He quickly picked them up and teleported outside, laying them down gently and requesting that they receive a proper funeral. He then returned to confront Shigaraki, who was about to enter a portal. "Hey, Tenko," Izuku called out, causing Shigaraki to freeze. "Tell All for One to try harder next time." Shigaraki's expression shifted from shock to a scowl as he hurried into the portal. After helping with the cleanup, Izuku felt exhaustion wash over him and promptly passed out. When he awoke, the familiar scent of a hospital filled his nostrils, an unsettling mix of antiseptic and the faint odor of decay. He sighed, recognizing the atmosphere all too well. Turning to his left, he saw Aizawa asleep in a hospital bed. With a mischievous grin, he snapped a picture for future blackmail. After changing, he wandered the hospital, offering his assistance. Initially met with skepticism, he soon gained their trust by showing his doctor ID, and they welcomed his help. After completing a surgery, he decided to visit Aizawa. Entering the room, he found Aizawa in the company of Detective Naomasa Tsukachi, Principal Nizu, and Nemuri. Izuku hesitated, thinking he had interrupted something, but Nizu assured him it was fine and asked why he was wearing a doctor's uniform. Izuku explained that he had been helping out at the hospital. Tsukachi then asked if they could ask him a few questions. Izuku raised an eyebrow, suggesting it sounded more like an interrogation. Tsukachi sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck, and Izuku sighed, realizing it was time to reveal more about himself. He stated that he was immortal, which elicited shocked reactions from everyone present. He silenced their exclamations, reminding them they were in a hospital. He continued, explaining that he had lived since the dawn of time and could defeat them in the blink of an eye with only a fraction of his strength. Aizawa raised his hand, challenging him about why he had fainted, why he registered at a high school, and why he had allowed 3 students to die. Izuku silenced him again, emphasizing the importance of keeping his voice down in the hospital. He explained that he had lowered his power level significantly, leaving him exhausted. Curious, Nizu asked what he meant by lowering his power. Izuku elaborated that he had too much power and lacked complete control over it. He illustrated his point by explaining that if he unleashed just a fraction of his strength, it could have catastrophic consequences. Tsukachi pressed him on why he applied to UA, and Izuku replied that he wanted to train the next generation. Midnight, with tears in her eyes, confronted him about the deaths of the students. Izuku shot back, pointing out that it could have been worse. The argument escalated, with Midnight insisting that he could have saved them if he had acted faster. In a moment of frustration, Izuku unleashed his emotions, revealing the burden of his immortality and the countless lives he had taken over the years. He expressed his grief for the students, explaining that their deaths haunted him daily. The professionals were left speechless, and in a moment of despair, Izuku teleported home, overwhelmed by his emotions. He spent the following month in solitude, grappling with his feelings of guilt and loss. Meanwhile, the heroes were deeply concerned about him, even as they tried to support Aizawa, who was also struggling with the aftermath of the incident. Class 1A mourned the loss of their friends, harboring anger towards Izuku, unaware of the depth of his pain. Aizawa and Nemuri decided to visit Izuku, hoping to apologize and check on him. When they arrived at his home, they were met with chaos. Trash littered the floor, and the food had gone rotten. As they approached Izuku's room, they found it in disarray, clothes scattered everywhere, some even floating in the air. In the corner, there was a green blob of hair wearing the same clothes he had on the day of his outburst. Nemuri and Aizawa stood at the doorway, tears streaming down their faces. They immediately rushed to comfort him. He was extremely skinny, and when he looked up, his expression was one of sheer horror, reminiscent of Aizawa on a caffeine-deprived, sleepless week, but 100 times worse. His eyes were puffy, and his lips were swollen from biting. Izuku sobbed, his voice cracking as he expressed his feelings of guilt. Eventually, both Nemuri and Aizawa managed to coax the poor green bean to eat something and take a bath. However, during his bath, he slipped and injured his leg but insisted he was fine, even though it wouldn't heal quickly. When he finished, he didn't look any better, but at least he smelled better. The three of them walked to UA in silence, Izuku using crutches. Class 1A was fuming when they heard that Izuku had returned to school. They thought he had been expelled and were preparing to bombard him with questions and use him as a target for their frustrations. Aizawa entered the room, his eyes puffy, causing Class 1A to wonder what had happened to him. He warned them to be nice to Izuku, explaining that he had gone through a rough time. The students thought about their own struggles, but when Izuku finally entered, all their anger dissipated. Before Izuku arrived, the class had been filled with resentment. They questioned why he was returning to school, believing it was his fault that their friends had died. They wondered why he wasn't expelled and decided that if he was coming back, they would make good use of him. When Izuku entered, he looked terrible. He relied on crutches, his eyes were puffy, and his lips were swollen from biting. He appeared too skinny, leaving the class to wonder how he was still alive. He turned to them and bowed deeply, a gesture that made Ida proud. He attempted to communicate rapidly, but only Koji and, surprisingly, Kaminari understood him. They looked at Koji and Kaminari, who both had tears in their eyes. Koji spoke up, his voice shaky, explaining that Izuku was sorry and felt it was all his fault, and that he had become temporarily mute. The class was at a loss. Before this incident, everyone had looked up to Izuku, who had grown attached to them. He was the source of smiles and the heart of the class. Now, he was broken, and they didn't know how to help. They all got out of their seats and rushed to his side, hugging him tightly. They felt how thin he was, and he began to cough and cry again. The class joined in the emotional moment, and Aizawa sighed, knowing he would have to deal with paperwork explaining why the classroom was filled with tears. For the next few days, Class 1A tried their best to learn sign language. When Koji was not around, which was often since he was an introvert, Kaminari took on the role of translating for Izuku. The pranks about what Izuku actually said became less amusing. Izuku reflected on his day. The previous day, he had accidentally transformed part of himself into a bunny, leaving him with bunny ears for 2 days. He groaned and put on a baseball hat. When he entered class, he received questioning looks, but they had learned not to ask. Today, Aizawa was going to announce the UA Sports Festival to Class 1A. Izuku already knew about it since he had hacked into the UA system. He was surprised that Kaminari could read sign language, but the pranks had lost their humor. When homeroom finished, Aizawa called for everyone's attention, noting it had taken them 5 minutes to settle down. He announced that they would have the sports festival later on and reminded them of the rules. No one complained, not even Bakugo, who was snuggled into Todoroki's chest. Aizawa dismissed the class, and as they walked out, they encountered a large group of people. Izuku had expected this, but an overly curious blonde asked who they were. He explained that they were the other classes declaring war, anticipating this outcome. A random student remarked that it seemed Class 1A had a smart one among them. Izuku grinned, confidently stating that he could defeat the third years and all the pro heroes in a fight within 10 minutes, using only 10% of his power. Naturally, they didn't believe him, as was typical. He asked if anyone believed him, and a blonde guy stepped forward. In a flash, Izuku paused time, took out his computer, and floated in a sitting position to hack into the UA system for the boy's information. When he resumed time, he revealed the details about Monoma, a Class 1B student with the ability to copy quirks. The class blinked in disbelief, and Izuku's baseball hat flew off as he covered his bunny ears. He expressed his frustration at their constant exclamations of surprise. Monoma grinned, realizing he had discovered a weakness. Izuku, thinking it would be fun to play along, pretended to be scared, bowing repeatedly and adopting a different persona. He reverted to his canon personality, and Monoma laughed, agreeing to go easy on him but warning that he wouldn't hold back a second time. Izuku slowly nodded and hurried to the lunchroom. The class felt a mix of fear and anticipation. The last time Izuku had used that persona, 20 gangsters had ended up in the hospital, and the memory sent shivers down their spines. On the day of the sports festival, loud cheers erupted as President Mick's voice boomed through the microphone, announcing the freshman classes. "And our freshman class 1A, the hero course," he exclaimed. His voice rang out again, introducing classes 1B, 1C, and 1D. And the class representative, Izuku Midoriya. Izuku stood nervously, wearing his baseball hat. His bunny ears had disappeared the day before, but he decided to fully embrace his role. He stepped forward, stuttering as he spoke, I know everyone can be a hero, and Monoma, please don't hurt me." Monoma let out a cackle in response. With a menacing grin, Izuku declared, "All for one, if you dare to try to invade this festival, I will take you down." Confused whispers spread among the crowd, but Izuku quickly reverted to his canon persona. That's all, thank you," he said, bowing twice. When the first obstacle was announced as an obstacle race, everything seemed normal, except Izuku was nowhere to be seen. President Mike announced, and Shoto Todoroki is in second place, and Katsuki Bakugo is in third. Both competitors were taken aback when they spotted Izuku floating in midair, casually eating noodles. "Took you long enough," he remarked between bites. At the start of the race, President Mike shouted, "Ready, set, go." In an instant, Izuku teleported to the finish line. "First place, Izuku Midoriya," he announced. Back in the present, Midnight proudly declared, "Cavalry battle. And first place will earn 1 million points." Everyone turned to see Izuku still enjoying his noodles. "You have 15 minutes to form teams," Midnight instructed. Izuku approached her and asked, "Can I do this alone since no one will team up with me?" Midnight regarded him thoughtfully before replying, "Okay." A grin spread across Izuku's face, reflecting his excitement. This is going to be fun. End of chapter. Thank you for reading. Izuku's perspective shifted as President Mike announced the start of the event. With a loud cheer, he encouraged everyone to begin. Almost everyone rushed toward him, but he floated up, playfully snatching their headbands while tickling them. Afterward, he counted how many headbands each person had, ensuring that Monoma's team was in second place, Katsuki and Shoto in third, and Shinso in fourth. Confused expressions filled the faces of his classmates as they wondered why he returned the headbands, but by the time they snapped out of their daze, the timer had stopped. The crowd erupted in cheers as President Mike declared Izuku Midoriya the winner. Taking a break, Izuku approached Enderbish, who commented on his strength and asked him to encourage Shoto to use his fire abilities. Annoyed, Izuku decided to play a trick. He stuttered a response, pretending to be unsure, and Enderbish nodded in satisfaction before walking away. Unable to contain his laughter, Izuku called out to Shoto and Katsuki, who emerged from their hiding spot, blushing in embarrassment. He reassured Todoroki that using his fire was his strength and that it was ultimately his choice. He glanced at Bakugo, who turned red, and teased the pair before saying goodbye. Izuku's first opponent was Monoma, and he grinned at the challenge. President Mike announced Monoma's name, followed by his own, declaring him the defending champion. As he stepped into the arena with a nervous expression, Monoma wore a sadistic grin reminiscent of Nizu's, a smile Izuku had taught Nizu. Monoma shouted for Izuku to come at him, having copied present Mick's quirk. A loud explosion echoed as he activated Katsuki's quirk, expecting Izuku to be out of bounds or incapacitated. However, Izuku was nowhere to be found. Surprising Monoma, Izuku appeared behind him, removing his baseball hat and grinning. He playfully confessed to tricking Monoma, revealing that he didn't actually have a weakness. Monoma paled at the revelation. Izuku's smile widened as he demonstrated his own abilities, holding out 5 fingers. His thumb ignited with flames, his index finger froze, his middle finger sprouted leaves, his ring finger grew a mouth that laughed, and his pinky sprouted blades. Monoma looked as though he had seen a ghost, which was ironic given his own ghostly appearance. The arena fell silent, the audience frozen in shock. Izuku addressed the crowd, explaining that they were likely curious about his quirk. He revealed that he was actually quirkless and that what they were witnessing was life magic, claiming to be thousands of years old. As he spoke, he began to glow, his green hair lengthening and his clothes transforming into a simple white kimono, surrounded by a green aura. The atmosphere shifted dramatically as the crowd stared at him, no longer just a boy but a figure of immense power. Reporters began to report on the scene, whispers spread among the audience, and the police deliberated on whether to intervene. One thing was clear, no one could defeat him. After the initial shock wore off, Izuku approached Enderbish again, firmly stating that Shoto was his own person with the strength to make his own choices. He emphasized that Shoto loved his boyfriend and that Enderbish needed to take good care of him. Enderbish nodded in admiration. In the days that followed, Izuku found himself interviewed by countless reporters and earned the nickname, the Good Green God. He found it amusing, especially when Hisashi laughed at the name. This was his new reality, and he was grateful for the support he received. Many years later, an interview was taking place. The reporter, Chad, greeted Izuku with enthusiasm, but Izuku requested he drop the playful nicknames. He introduced himself simply as Izuku, acknowledging the interview and the passage of time since his memorable appearance at the UA Sports Festival 5 years ago. Chad rolled his eyes and asked Izuku how life had been since that eventful day when he had made quite the impression on everyone. Izuku responded that life had indeed been eventful. He shared that Katsuki Bakugo, now known as Katsuki Todoroki, and Shoto had adopted a 3rd child named James. Yamamo had taken charge of her family company, and he and Ejiro were planning to get married that year. Chad congratulated him and inquired about the implications of Izuku's immortality as it related to aging. Izuku explained that if he loved someone deeply, he could grant them immortality as well. When Chad expressed surprise, Izuku became slightly flustered, revealing that there was a process involved in making someone immortal. Chad teased him about his age and experience, leading to a moment of embarrassment for Izuku, who sheepishly admitted to being a virgin. Chad's excitement was palpable as he exclaimed about this revelation, but Izuku quickly silenced him with a playful threat, reminding him of his infamous Cheshire smile. Chad apologized, and they moved on to discuss Izuku's birthday, which Chad had remembered. The interview concluded with Chad wishing Izuku a happy birthday. Upon returning home, Izuku was greeted with a surprise party. He smiled as he saw the Todoroki couple, Class 1A, and most of the UA staff gathered to celebrate. He ran to Ejiro, his fiancée, and shared a joyful kiss. That night, they planned to do something special they had been looking forward to after their wedding. Izuku expressed gratitude for the readers of his story, playfully mentioning a friend named Cal who had encouraged him to share his journey. In a light-hearted exchange, Cal teased Izuku about his status, but Izuku warned him not to underestimate his strength. Their banter continued, with Izuku eventually leaving the conversation. As the story wrapped up, the author expressed appreciation for the readers and their support, thanking them for their time and engagement. The narrative concluded with a reminder for everyone to stay safe and take care of one another. Round up your friends and followers to vote for the ship. Good luck, and hope for the best. See you. The results from both popular books, He's Dying and He's Seen It All, have been gathered. Apologies if your ship didn't get selected. The love for all readers is immense, and the goal is to make everyone happy. For those whose ships weren't chosen despite voting, a special chapter will be created featuring your ship and plot requests. Just send a message or comment, and now, a drum roll please. The story everyone had been waiting for was finally here. Titled, The Trapped Hero, it promised to be an emotional journey, especially for those who supported the Deku pairing. With the results of the recent ship vote in, it was clear that Deku had emerged as the favorite, followed by Deku, Deku, and others. The author had a unique approach to engaging readers, setting a voting goal for each chapter. Once the goal was reached, the next chapter would be released. The first chapter's goal was set at 5 votes, and the author encouraged everyone to participate and enjoy the unfolding story. As the narrative began, the characters faced challenges that tested their resolve and friendships. Tension filled the air as they navigated their emotions and the complexities of their relationships, all while striving to protect one another in a world that often felt overwhelming. The bonds they shared would be crucial as they confronted the trials ahead, each moment bringing them closer together or pushing them apart. With every twist and turn, the stakes grew higher, and the characters had to rely on their strengths and the support of their friends to overcome the obstacles in their path. The journey was just beginning, and the promise of adventure and emotional depth lay ahead.